You are Locked On Clippers Postcast, part of Locked On Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Locked On Clippers Sports LA YouTube channel and the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. I am Pete Fox. Clippers with a nice come from behind win, 122-116 in Houston. We'll get into it in just a little bit. Again, thank you for joining me here on the postcast. Now, I wanted to clear up something real quick. I've started doing the postcast here for Locked On back in the first of the year. January 1st, I believe, was my first game. And I'd like to clear up, evidently, there's a little bit of confusion as to what the difference between a postcast and a podcast is. I've explained it to friends and family and people that I've met around just talking about what we're doing here. And it's still a little confusing. I don't know that I've ever directly explained it to you guys. So as you know, Locked On's been around for a long time, 8-9 years, giving you your team every day, covering whatever team it is and whatever sport it is every day, 5 days a week. So we call those people that do that the daily guys. They cover the team very in depth, very up close, and on a very, very regular basis. Well, when I was hired to cover the teams up close and personal as well, but immediately following the game. That's why it's called a postcast. So the theory is that I come on right after the game, like right now, and we break down the game. We get into the details of the game. So I cover the specific things that went on in this game that just finished. And the daily guy, in theory, is supposed to cover the team kind of more in depth. So we both cover the Clippers very up close and personal, but in the postcast, it is designed to be about the game, right? Not necessarily about contracts or the future of the team or whether or not Ty Lue is going to get fired or extended or whatever, whether or not they have a real shot at winning a championship. I know I've talked about that. I talked about that 2 nights ago, and I'm sure Dorian talks about it as well. So that's what we do. The daily guy, Dorian, talks about the team on a daily basis, but also obviously gets into what happens in each and every game because that's a huge part of the team. And then I come in after the game and break it down. Stats, play for play, big shots with the bucket list, et cetera, et cetera. So there it is explained for you. If you have any further questions, feel free to comment and I will respond. Again, Clippers coming from behind to win this one, 122-116. Again, Pete Fox been covering sports in LA for ESPN Radio and NBC Sports Radio dating back to 2007. The Clippers lately have been one of two things. They've been a 3 good quarters, 1 bad quarter team, or a 1 good quarter, 3 bad quarters team. Tonight, they played 2 halves. Pretty awful in the first half. Lots of lots of that needs to improve. Lots of issues, lots of things that you wished they did better. Then in the third quarter, things really turned around for them. But the Rockets had a fairly substantial lead at the break. So the Clippers had to dig themselves out of a fairly deep hole, 57-44 at the break. After the first quarter, 27-19, Rockets led. I'm not exactly sure who said it. Might have been Christina Pink, might have been Brian Seaman. It could have been the coach Fratello, but somebody on the broadcast team brought up a stat, which made us all feel pretty good about how this game was going to go. And in the end, it was without a doubt a huge broadcaster's jinx. Coming into this game, dating back to mid-December, the Rockets are the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. They didn't mention until later that they're very good at defending the 3, like 3rd in the league at defending the 3. But back to December, I don't know, mid-December, didn't say what date. They are the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. And of course, guess what they did tonight? They came out and shot the lights out from beyond the arc. 43%, 16 of 37. So they just weren't missing a whole bunch of them. Van Vliet was hot. Smith Jr. had 4. Jalen Green had 2. Whitmore off the bench, a big night, 7 of 15 in 24 minutes, 3 of 7 from beyond the arc for 17 points. So the Rockets, who were on a back-to-back, played kind of out of their head tonight. This got to be a tough loss for them, but at the same time, There was a lot to feel really good about for them. And the Clippers really kind of found something with Mason Plumlee. And I'm not sure that they really found anything specific because Mason Plumlee has had good games for them. It wasn't like, hey, where did Mason Plumlee come from? I know there are people that watch here on a regular basis that comment on the YouTube page that don't like Mason Plumlee and think he is a liability. And at times he is. Even tonight he was for a minute. Late in the game, they right about the 3-minute mark, the Rockets start the hack-a-shack or hack-a-Plumlee thing, fouling him away from the ball, sending him to the line. And of course, he missed both of them. But right on the tails of that, he had a big block shot and turned it into points. And the Clippers went on a little run right at that point, and they finished the game on an 11-1 run, which was huge for them and got them the win. And Mason Plumlee was a part of that. He was huge on the boards in the second half and also scored 8 points. Didn't play in the first much at all. All of his points came in the second half. So he was very good in 20 minutes, 4 of 5 from the floor, 8 points and 11 rebounds. So did a fantastic job in spite of missing those 2 free throws. But of late, like the last, I think they said 3 to 4 games, he shot above 75%. I think right around 78% from the line, which isn't terrible. I mean, it's not DeAndre Jordan bad or Shaquille O'Neal bad, but you know, it's decent. So I was kind of surprised that he missed both of them because I don't think I've seen him do that in a while. But more than anything, I think what you have to be excited about with this game and this win is that in the fourth quarter, they showed some fight. James Harden showed up because he was MIA after the first. I thought James Harden was going to come out after playing 9 seasons in Houston and be like, hey, remember me? You know, it's that sort of, I need to prove something to you kind of a thing that everyone does when they play against their old team. You know, maybe we should call that the Pat Bev theory or the Pat Bev situation. When you're playing against your former team, you have to go off. Well, that's what it looked like for Harden early on. He came out and he had 8 points in the first quarter. And he was really the only one kind of doing anything for them because they were 8 of 20 from the field in the first quarter. So, you know, I thought, oh, he's going to have a huge game. And then he disappeared for the second and the third. And then fortunately came out on the fourth and got hot again. He was 6 of 13 from the floor in 39 minutes, only 1 3, but he had 21 points. So a very nice night shooting for him. The Clippers finished at 55% after a 42% first half. They shot 64% in the third. So that is good. There's so many other things that you feel good about in this fourth quarter for the Clippers, and we'll get into them right after this. All right, tonight's show brought to you in part by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy. It also keeps your ride or die alive. You got to have patience and you got to have a drive to keep your car driving. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, even things you need like brake kits and taillights and things of that nature. That's what I've used eBay Motors for many, many times. They have all the parts you need, and they have a guaranteed fit that has got 122 million parts available to you. Your ride or die, you can always find the exact right part you're looking for with eBay's guaranteed fit. You can be sure that when you buy a part that it will fit your car, and if you don't, you'll get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP that you need and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Save money doing it. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Well, the rain is coming down outside tonight here in SoCal. Another atmospheric river, I guess. It's raining down here, just like the Clippers were raining down threes. How'd they finish on the night? Not bad. 12 of 29, 41%. Most of that came in the fourth quarter. The one thing that I really felt good about was Paul George. Showed up big in the fourth quarter, both offensively and defensively. Going into this game, there was talk from the announcers and some of the coaches that they really needed Paul George to show up on defense more than offense. I was thinking, yeah, that's nice. That's a nice bonus but you really want Paul George to show up on offense. And he did that tonight in the fourth quarter. He was huge. 4 threes, finished with 21 points. There were a lot of big buckets. I had a tough time coming up with a number one on the bucket list tonight. So we have 1, 2, 3 number ones, A, B, and C for the top 3 shots of the night on the bucket list. But Harden was good. Paul George was good. Kawhi was fantastic. And more than anything, almost like he heard me griping about it 2 nights ago, we needed somebody to be the dog, somebody to fire up his team, somebody to encourage his team, somebody to get his team motivated. And I never in a million years would have thought it would be Kawhi Leonard. I ruled him out when I was going through the roster. Like, who could be the dog on this team? My first one was, well, it's not Kawhi Leonard. Well, I guess I was wrong. He proved me 100% wrong because he did it tonight. He got in there. Christina Pink referenced it during the huddles, in timeouts. He was encouraging the team. He wasn't just sitting there like he normally does with that deadpan look on his face, like he doesn't care. Of course, we know he cares. He just doesn't look like it. So he got his teammates fired up. So all the big guys were scoring crucial buckets at crucial times, which you like to see. It wasn't just one guy jumping out in front to take the lead. Harden had big buckets. Paul George had big buckets. Kawhi Leonard had big buckets. Norman Powell had some big buckets in the fourth. 3 threes on the night. He finished with 12. Now, for some of the bad stuff throughout the game, and most importantly in the fourth quarter, all in all, I guess it doesn't matter much because they won, but I still saw the Rockets getting to the rack way too easily. The paint was just wide open in the fourth quarter. Earlier in the night, I was kind of like, that's fine, whatever. Earlier in the game, rather, I was more upset about them not guarding the perimeter. Here you have a team that is the worst three-point shooting team in the league, dating back to December 15th or somewhere thereabout, and you're letting them shoot these wide open threes. They weren't even closing out at times. When a nice pass would come around the perimeter to an open guy, the nearest guy, who was maybe 5-6 feet away at times, would just stand and turn around and hope the rebound would bounce into his arms. I saw Mason Plumlee do it. I saw Kawhi Leonard do it. I saw James Harden do it. They're just like, you're not going to make it. You know, there's that old adage in basketball. There's a reason that guy is open, right? Because he can't make a three. Well, I guess going into this game, that's what they thought. You know that they had to have that pregame metric that this team is not good from beyond the arc. So why should we worry about it? If I'm the coach and I know that, I'm telling them, listen, let's not let this team beat us from beyond the arc. They did beat them from beyond the arc, but they did not win the game. So if you just counted the 3 points, it was 16-12. Rockets win it from beyond the arc. They ended up 47% from the floor, did Houston, 45 of 94. And the Clippers, again, 55%, going 44 of 80. But, you know, the defense just needs to improve. Now, let me mention something that one of my viewers mentioned in the comments after the game a couple of nights ago, and I haven't thought about this in a while, is the so-called flipping of the switch. The comment was that the Clippers don't really care about winning or losing when they're considerably above 500, as they are 19 games above 500 after this win. They will make the playoffs. Now it's just all about seeding. So his comment was, well, they don't really care too much about these games during this stretch right here, because all they want to do is get to the tournament and then they'll flip the switch. This was something when I worked at ESPN that they would talk about with regard to the Lakers during the Kobe Powell eras, when they would lose games in the middle of the season to teams that they should beat. Fans would call and they would say, it's fine. Don't worry. They'll flip the switch when they need to. And then they'd play a big game and they'd lose. And we'd say, why didn't they flip the switch there? And by the way, where is this switch? Is it under then Staples Center? Or is it in the tunnel? Is it outside? Is it in the garage where they park their cars? Is it in the locker room? Is it under the bench, by the bench? Where's the switch? Where do they flip the switch? You know, obviously there's no switch, but in theory, I feel like this is a school of thought with regard to many teams, not just the Clippers. We're a good team. We could score. We know we can. We know that these games are important. We're not going to intentionally try to lose them. But if we lose, so what? We're fine. We're way above 500. We're a good team. When it matters, we'll flip the switch. So are you going to try to tell me that game against the Bucks a couple nights ago didn't matter? They could say, well, they weren't at their best. Giannis was out. No Greek freak. So we want to beat them when they're 100%. Okay. I love that theory. No, you want to get wins when you're up 20. Well, tonight, the Clippers handed it to the Rockets. Down 20. This was their second 20 or more point come from behind win. So they did it with nice shooting, nice runs, getting stops, getting rebounds. Mason Plumlee was huge on the boards in the second half. Again, 11 rebounds in the second half for him, and they were all big. And this was in spite of that Şengün guy who's 21 and had a massive triple-double just playing out of his head. I'm like, that guy's tough because he's like 7'1" and he plays like a point guard, passes the ball, rebounds the ball. His triple-double was 23 points, 19 boards, 14 assists. That's a huge night. So needless to say, he was a little frustrated when it was all said and done. But I still feel like they need a few more stops. To their credit, I will say this. I've complained about this in the past, that they get runs and then they give up runs. I only saw that once tonight, where they, right at the start of the fourth quarter, I think it was, they went on a 6-0 run and they turned right around and gave up a 5-0 run. And I guess that could be a lot worse. That could have been 2 threes and 2 buckets. It's not that big of a deal, but they were good. They had many runs. They had a big run in the first quarter, 9-1 run. No, that's another stat. Let me get to that in a second. Where was that? Oh, 6-0 run followed by a 5-0 run. That was in the second quarter. My bad. I thought it was later in the game. So really that was fine. It was acceptable. They started to, down 20 right around that point. They started to peel their way, scratch their way, claw their way back into it late in the second quarter. They started showing that fight, not just in the third, started to come around in the second quarter as well. Kawhi Leonard was 5 of 9 in the first half, 12 points, but Paul George had just 2. So that's a good feeling there that he finished as strong as he did. But again, in the first, the ball wasn't quite moving as much as we would like to see. Good news is they did get it moving in the second quarter and most importantly, late in the game. But they should have won this game going away a lot earlier for a couple of reasons, because the Rockets were on a back-to-back and they did not take advantage of that. The Rockets didn't seem as tired as they should have been. And they knew that stat hanging over their head of 9-1. So teams this season, Clippers versus teams on a back-to-back, second night of that back-to-back, Clippers are 9-1 now, 10-1. So they have the message on the board that they need a better defensive effort in transition. Did we get that? We'll talk about that coming up after this. All right, tonight's show also brought to you by BetterHelp. Now that we are into the new year and rolling along, this is about the time when, the New Year's resolution starts to slip by the wayside. As we always talk about the first of the year, people are compelled to come up with a resolution or 3 ways to change themselves, to improve themselves, instead of just expanding on what we're already doing well, what we're already feeling good about in our lives. So therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the resolutions and the extreme changes in your life and just build on the things that are working. And those things will really stick with you. I've done therapy a few different times over my life, and I've always found it to be helpful from the standpoint that it allows me and gives me the tools that I need to deal with situations that can be frustrating, kind of the count to 10, take a deep breath, those type of things that are a little bit more elaborate. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. And having done both online and in person, they're very, very similar. Don't feel like it's a phone call. It's very personal, as you would expect it to be online. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Clippers with a 20-point come from behind win to beat the Rockets at Toyota Center in Houston, 122-116, led by Kawhi Leonard, 27 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds. Was doing all the important things. Started a little slow. I always like Kawhi in any of these guys, Paul George, James Harden, to make their first basket. Harden did that. Kawhi did not. Paul George did not. But in the end, they made big shots when they needed to. And another thing that we were frustrated with a couple of nights ago, free throw shooting, not tonight, back where they should be, 84%, 22 of 26. So that feels really good. As I said, Kawhi Leonard firing up his teammates is so important to this team. And I feel like if we can keep that going and maybe, he can be that kind of vocal leader for this team, the momentum can start rolling. Now, they're off for a couple of days. They play Chicago on Saturday. So that'll be another tough test. And then they've got Milwaukee again. Then they've got the T-Wolves again. So probably important that they get a win against the Bulls, who are a good team. So they're no pushover either. But having Milwaukee and the Timberwolves back to back again is going to be a tough stretch. So right now it's crucial for the Clippers to get some confidence, start doing the simple things right. As I said, going into the break, there was one thing that the team itself has been focused on. The coaching staff has been harping about to them and on them, so much so that the announcers know about. We all know about the transition defense for the Clippers. It has been pretty bad of late, right? But that was one of the things that was devastating in that Milwaukee game. Is it was really, really good. In that Laker loss where they blew the 21-point lead, it was atrocious, but they had kind of resurrected. They got back on track and they were doing well in that Milwaukee game. Don't exactly remember how it went in the T-Wolves game from a statistical standpoint, but they didn't I think they gave up 6 points off a transition defense against the Milwaukee Bucks. So that was very, very good. Against the Lakers, it was an awful number. If I heard it correctly, it was like 50 points in transition. That's probably wrong because it seems like it's way too many. So I probably did not understand the stat the way that Christina Pink referenced it. But the point was, and obviously when you blow a 21-point lead, the opposition is doing a lot of things well and you're letting them. So points in transition, threes. I mean, in that fourth quarter, LeBron James and the Lakers just absolutely went off. LeBron, of course, outscored the team by himself 19-16. So the transition D was an issue then. They improved upon it. It got better, obviously, in the Minnesota game because they got a win there, and that was a low-scoring defensive affair. And then should have won in the Milwaukee game, but fell apart in the fourth quarter. So the transition defense, still an issue. Was it better today? Not really. At times. So everything in transition today for me was bad. That's where I would give them a D- or something. Not quite an F, but a D- because their transition offense was not good. Their transition defense was not good. There was just a lot of holes there, which led to some of those easy buckets, which I referenced earlier with them needing to clog up the paint more. I just feel like the paint is too wide open when you've got these young players like Dylan Brooks, Şengün, Van Fleet's not necessarily young, but Jalen Green. Those guys just had wide open paths to the hoop tonight against the Clippers defense in the paint. Fortunately, it didn't cost them, but it will. I think they have to just do a better job of clogging up that paint. And they did that in the Minnesota game. They guarded the perimeter. They guarded the paint. That's why the game was so low scoring. So it's clear that they're capable of doing it. And maybe this comes back to the switch flipping. We'll flip that switch when we need to. We didn't need to flip that switch tonight against the Rockets. That's fair. I'll give you that. The Rockets coming in with one of the worst, if not the worst, distance shooting team since mid-December in the league. I don't know how I feel about those stats. We've leaned on them a lot here with the Clippers. The Clippers are what was this, the one that I keep seeing? Oh, they're the best road team dating back to mid-November. Excuse me. 11 and 17. This weird scratchy thing in my throat that I can't get rid of. So, I mean, it's something that we as Clipper fans lean on, these stats, when you just pick a certain window, right? It's fair. And they're the second best team now, record wise, dating back to December 1st. They had the first best moniker for quite a while, but they've lost a few. And now the Boston Celtics are that team, best record in the league dating back to December 1st. Clippers are still the best road team dating back to mid-November, which I kind of found surprising. And they're 19 and 13. So what did I say? 11 and 17 and 11 dating back to mid-November. That's the best road record in the league? I guess so. I mean, we'll take it, right? It's something. It's clear that they can do it. So maybe there is something to this switch flipping thing. As we move through this month, which is a tough month, 4 back-to-backs. We've had 1, 3 more to go. 17 games in all here in the month of March. It is going to be uphill sledding, to be sure. So if they can come out of this feeling good about themselves, heading into April and then into the playoffs, I think they'll be doing what they need to do. They'll be feeling good about themselves. And we've seen with the chinks in the armor, the cracks in the dam, if you will, we've seen them do these things better. It's not like it's the same problem night after night after night. We've seen them play defense in transition, so we know they can. We've seen them play defense around the perimeter. We know they can. We've seen them pass the ball, move the ball, not get stuck taking bad looks. We know they can do that. They did it in the fourth quarter tonight very well. First, second quarter, not so much, right? So there is probably a whole lot to this theory of, well, when it matters, they'll flip the switch on. I hope you're right. I hope that's the case. I hope when the playoffs roll around, that switch is broken in the on position. But I'm sure there'll be games where we'll be frustrated saying, well, why didn't they flip the switch there? You could have swept them. But you just don't know. I feel like at times I hold this team to too high a standard. My idea of perfection is pretty close to making 0 mistakes, and that's just not realistic. These are human beings. This is a very hard game, and even the bad teams are still pretty good. So I feel all in all that the Clippers are going in the right direction, and in spite of some frustrating losses, it's not as bad as that one. I mean, this is what Doc said after the Lakers game. So Doc, this is what Ty Lue said after the Lakers game, that it's not a microcosm of the entire season, this one game, or one quarter to be specific. And I'm sure he had the same message after the Milwaukee Bucks fourth quarter letdown that, hey, this is not our whole season. We played really well. We let them off the hook, and that's unfortunate. So let's go back and get them next time, which they did tonight. So, and it wasn't just 3 bad quarters and 1 good quarter. I felt like halftime they made some major adjustments, put Mason Plumlee in there. He had a fine game. And all in all, they played very well in the second half, fantastic in the fourth quarter, and put the victory up. Let's bang through the bucket list and the superlatives real quick and get out of here. In at number 5, James Harden hits his first 3 at the 9:30 mark of the game early in the first quarter to make it 5-4. I like to see it when he hits his first shot. Number 4, Norman Powell hits a 3 at 2:06 of the second. That made it a 12-point game when it was 17-18 around there. So they're starting to creep back. In at number 3, Terrence Mann hits a 3 at the 10:32 mark of the third. This makes it an 11-point game. It was a big corner 3, and he was on fire. In at number 2, Kawhi Leonard had a buzzer beater at the end of the third to make it a 6-point ball game, 86-80 Rockets. Now, our top 3 shots of the night, we have 3 number 1s, A, B, and C. We'll start with Kawhi Leonard's corner 3 at the 6:16 mark of the fourth for C. This made it a 2-point ball game, 101-99. Beautiful pass from James Harden to Kawhi in the corner, and he banged it down. Then at the 3:43 mark, Kawhi Leonard at the free throw line, a straightaway 2 over defenders to tie the ball game at 108. And then the dagger, a Paul George 3 for the lead at the 2:18 mark from the corner, 111-109. And from there, the Clippers went on to cruise it to victory without much of a issue any further in those final 2 minutes. The Rockets were out of it and done at that point. As for the superlatives for tonight, number one is our best teammate. Kawhi Leonard was the best teammate tonight because he did a little bit of everything. He played defense. He had 28 points. He had 2 steals, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds. So perfect at the line, hit a 3, 11 of 18. Kawhi Leonard did a little bit of everything, a +9 on the night. As for the most improved, this is bad in the early part of the game, good in the late part of the game. That would be Paul George. He had 2 points in the first half, and he finished with 21. So a great second half for Paul George. And the best defender of the night was Mason Plumlee. I mean, pulling down those boards. He had 11 boards on the night. I think he had 8 of them in the second half, and just was fantastic. A big part of this win for the Clippers. Finished with 8 points and 11 boards. So the Clippers get the win, coming from behind, erasing a 20-point deficit, 122-116 at Toyota Center over the Rockets in Houston. They're now 40-21, 19-13 on the road, off Thursday, Friday, back at it on Saturday against the Bulls in Chicago at the United Center, as far as I can remember. Maybe it is at home. Let me double check real quick. Not that it matters. I think it's an early game, though. It's like 1 o'clock. So that's a home game. Cool. Back here at crypto.com, a 1 o'clock start against the Bulls on Saturday. We'll talk after that. Have a good weekend, or rest of the week, rather, and I'll talk to you on Saturday. Thanks for joining me here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, and thanks for listening on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed.